After more than 3 years in immigration detention, a Tamil asylum seeker family could be set to be allowed to live freely in Australia. In the last hour, the federal government has confirmed 2 members of the Murugappan family still on Christmas Island will be reunited with 2 members who are now on the Australian mainland. The issue was brought to a head last week when the family's youngest child, Tharnicaa, was rushed to hospital in Perth suffering a serious blood infection, dialling up rapidly the pressure on the government to end their long legal battle to stay in Australia.
Government frontbenchers have this morning confirmed the Immigration Minister will make a statement later today on the family's longer-term future. But in the meantime, Tharnicaa and her mother Priya are set to be reunited with her father and older sister on the mainland. Let's get more from our political reporter in Canberra, Noor Hayder. Noor, this has all moved pretty rapidly given the years that have led up to this point.
Yeah, that's right, Lisa. This morning we've seen some rapid developments in this case. The Immigration Minister is expected to make an announcement about the family's long-term future in Australia. However, senior government ministers have confirmed that the family will be reunited on Australian shores soon. Members of the family were separated over a week ago when the youngest daughter, Tharnicaa, was medically evacuated off Christmas Island, where the family has been detained since 2019, and she was taken to a Perth hospital for treatment. She was found to have a blood infection caused by untreated pneumonia. She was accompanied by her mother, Priya, but her father, Nadez, and older sister, Kopika, remained on Christmas Island. Now, doctors treating her say that it's in her best interest that the family is reunited. And today we heard from both the Treasurer, Josh Frydenberg, and the Finance Minister, Simon Birmingham, confirming that that will happen soon. Here's the Finance Minister speaking earlier today on Radio National.
The Immigration Minister Alex Hawke is working through appropriate responses in terms of assessing the health situation, the humanitarian situation, and working there to ensure that the family, as I understand it, will be reunited, but also looking at other matters, and Alex will have more to say, I'm sure, on that during the course of today.
So what have the family's supporters been saying?
Well, Lisa, supporters are frustrated that it's taken the hospitalisation of a 4-year-old girl to prompt this decision by the federal government. Speaking on RN, the Finance Minister said that the government's been listening to the community and that circumstances have changed. He argued that the government doesn't, in its decision that we anticipate will be made by the Immigration Minister later today, doesn't want those without a legitimate claim to refugee status to, in the Minister's words, circumvent Australian processes. He says that the government, though, is trying to balance that with the need for a compassionate response. The federal government has long argued that this family should not be allowed to stay in Australia, that the federal government does not owe this family protection in Australia because they do not meet or have not been granted refugee status. Both parents came to Australia separately in 2012 and 2013 by boat, but they had both of their daughters in Australia, and they settled in the Queensland rural town of Biloela, which was welcoming and has long campaigned for them to be able to return home. They've been fighting for years deportation, and it seems that the Immigration Minister has come to a decision on their case. We're expecting an announcement from him shortly, but we spoke to a friend of the family, Angela Fredericks, who knows them from their time in Biloela, and she's frustrated that it's taken so long for a decision to be made.
It's just heartbreaking that it takes for a little girl to, I guess, publicly get so sick. We've been watching the deterioration of these girls for the last 3 years, and so it's heartbreaking to see that it takes her lying in a hospital bed with drips in her arms for our government to actually look and go, you know what, something's not right.
Now, the Immigration Minister Alex Hawke is expected to make a decision about the substantial question of whether this family will be granted a visa to live freely within the Australian community later today.
All right, Norm, lots of developments. We'll stay across them all. Thank you.
We have some breaking news for you now. The Immigration Minister Alex Hawke has just decided to allow that Tamil family to stay on the mainland, but also in community detention. Lisa, Alex Hawke in a statement says the family will now reside in suburban Perth through a community detention placement close to schools and support services, while the youngest child, Tharnicaa, receives medical treatment from the nearby Perth Children's Hospital, and as the family pursues ongoing legal matters.
That he says that at a future date, he'll consider whether to lift the statutory bar that's presently preventing members of the family from reapplying for temporary protection, for which they've previously been rejected.
The government's position, he goes on in the statement, on border protection has not changed. Anyone who arrives in Australia illegally by boat will not be resettled permanently. Anyone who is found not to be owed protection will be expected to leave Australia. So the federal government, Lisa, pulling one of those options we talked about earlier on the show, community detention in Perth. They aren't going back to Biloela, at least at this stage they're not, but legal processes are continuing. Those legal processes, as we know, as the lawyers have told us, could take some time to work through the system. But the big news is all of the family will live in Perth in community detention for at least the short to medium term future.
Yes, lots of sort of qualifiers in that statement, Michael, while the youngest child, Tharnicaa, receives the medical treatment. So that's the short term option. The longer term option, still question marks over what they may be able to do.